I've never told this story straight through to anybody, not even my wife. Some things you carry alone, because saying them out loud gives them weight they don't need. But it's been 14 years now, and I still wake up some nights with my heart hammering to the rhythm of 3 slow knocks. So here it is, the way it happened. Back in November 2011 got me, Travis, and Caleb had been hunting together since high school. We weren't rich, just 3 linemen from Charleston, who scraped together enough overtime to rent a place for opening week of rifle season. That year we found a listing for the old Hargrove Hunting Lodge outside Elkin's $3,000 a week, which was insane, but the pictures showed 17 bedrooms, a kitchen big enough to feed a logging camp, and 4 stone fireplaces you could stand up in. The realtor, a tired-sounding woman in town, said it had been sitting empty since the last heir died in '08. Cash up front, no refunds. And don't bother calling if the heat goes out, she told us. We laughed. Heat goes out, we'll just burn the furniture. We pulled in just after dark on a Friday. The gravel drive was half washed out, so we parked the trucks and carried our gear the last 100 yards. The lodge looked bigger in person, and in the photos 3 stories of dark timber and riverstone, windows like empty eyes. The front door stuck so bad we had to shoulder it open. Inside smelled like wet ash and old money. Dust floated in the beams of our headlamps thick enough to chew. Every footstep echoed twice. Travis, always the loud one, hollered up the main staircase. "Hello, ghosts. Rent's paid, so y'all behave." His voice bounced around and came back smaller. We found the breaker box, got a few lights flickering on, and picked bedrooms on the 2nd floor because they were closest to the bathroom that still had running water. My room was number 8, counting from the left. Caleb took 9. Travis took 12 because he claimed the mattress looked newer. We never bothered counting past that dot. We hunted hard the first 2 days. The ridges around the lodge were steep and tangled with rhododendron, so thick you could lose a dog 10 feet away. We saw rubs, scrapes, plenty of sign, but no deer worth shooting. Evenings we sat in the main hall with a fire roaring in the biggest fireplace, passing a bottle of wild turkey and lying about the bucks we'd seen. The house creaked and popped as it settled, wind rattling the loose panes, but nothing that felt wrong yet. Just an old place remembering it was alive. Saturday night we killed the bottle early and turned in around midnight. I was bone-tired, boots still on, lying on top of the covers because the sheets smelled like mouse piss. I just drifted off when I heard it 3 slow knocks on the wall right beside my head. Not loud, deliberate, like somebody on the other side seeing if anyone was home. I sat up, heart already going. "Travis, you asshole," I called. No answer. I got up, opened my door. Hallway was empty, just weak yellow light from the sconce at the far end. I stepped out in my socks, checked Travis's room. He was snoring loud enough to rattle the windows. Caleb's door was closed. I could hear his CPAP machine whirring. I went back to bed figuring I'd dreamed it. 15 minutes later, 3 knocks again, same spot, same rhythm. Only this time, when I pressed my ear to the plaster, I could tell the sound wasn't coming from the next room. It was coming from inside the wall itself, hollow and close, like the stud cavity was a drum. I pulled on my boots, grabbed my flashlight, and started following the sound. It moved with me 3 knocks ahead, pause, 3 more, like whatever it was wanted me to come find it. I walked the hallway slow, beam shaking a little in my hand. The knocking led me past all the numbered doors, past the bathroom, to the very end where the corridor took a jog nobody'd mentioned. There was a narrow door there I hadn't noticed before on painted pine. No number, no knob even, just an old-fashioned keyhole and a brass latch green with age. The knocking was right on the other side now, patient as January. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my breath to frost in the air, even though the furnace was running. Then the knock stopped. Dead silence except for the blood in my ears. I leaned in and put my ear to the wood. The voice that came through was barely a breath, dry leaves scraping together. Elijah, it said. Not Eli, what everybody calls me. Elijah, a name only my grandmother used when I was little, rocking me on her porch in Fayette County, humming hymns until I fell asleep. She died in 1989. I backed away so fast I hit the opposite wall. I didn't go back to my room. I went straight downstairs, grabbed my sleeping bag and rifle, and slept in the cab of my truck with the doors locked and the engine idling for heat. Didn't close my eyes more than a few minutes at a time. Every creak of the house sounded like that door-opening morning came gray and cold. Travis and Caleb thought I was hungover when I came in shaking, but they saw my face and shut up. We made coffee on the camp stove because the power had gone out sometime in the night. I told them what happened. Travis laughed at first, then stopped when I didn't laugh with him. Caleb just stared at the hallway upstairs, like he could see through the ceiling. We went up together. All three of us carrying rifles like that would help. The narrow door at the end of the hall was cracked open maybe 2 inches. No one had a key, and the latch hadn't been forced. It looked like it had simply let go. The air coming out of that slice of darkness was colder than outside, carrying a smell like river stones and baby powder. Travis reached for the edge of the door. I grabbed his wrist. Don't. He looked at me a second, then stepped back. We shined our lights inside. It was a small room, maybe 6 by 8, windowless. Wallpaper peeled in long yellow strips. A single child's iron bed frame, no mattress. And on the dusty floorboards, pointing straight in from the threshold, one perfect small shoe print. Barefoot, maybe size 3 or 4. A toddler's. The dust around it undisturbed except for that one mark. Toes deep like the child had been running toward whatever waited inside. We didn't speak. We packed our gear in under 20 minutes, left the key on the kitchen counter, and drove out without looking back. Halfway down the mountain, Travis finally said, "You ever notice there were 17 doors up there, but only 16 rooms on the blueprints the realtor emailed?" None of us answered. I still hunt. Still love the woods. But I won't stay in any house built before 1950, and I never sleep against an inside wall if I can help it. Sometimes when I'm home alone and the furnace kicks off, I'll hear it 3 slow knocks, patient, coming from somewhere the architect never drew. I don't get up anymore. I just pull the covers over my head like a kid and wait for morning, praying whatever's on the other side loses interest before spring, because some doors aren't meant to be answered, and some names aren't meant to be spoken by the dead. I've guided hunters and photographers through these mountains for 22 years now, ever since I got out of the Army in '03 and couldn't stand the thought of sitting behind a desk in some flatland city. Folks hire me because I know every hollow, every old logging road, every place where the cell signal dies and the world feels right again. Most trips are quiet, just rich people wanting pretty pictures or a set of antlers to hang over a fireplace they never sit by. But fall of 2017, I took a job that still wakes me up some nights with the taste of iron in my mouth and the smell of frost that doesn't belong. Claire Messner was her name. 31, Pittsburgh accent, city boots that cost more than my truck payment. Worked for one of those glossy magazines that prints pictures of barns falling down like it's art. She emailed me in August wanting 3 days in the cranberry backcountry. Real Appalachia, no gift shops, no posed hillbillies. I quoted her a price that should have scared her off. She paid it the same day. We met at the little store in Richwood on a Tuesday morning in October. Leaves were turning, but the color hadn't peaked yet, just blood-red maples scattered through all that green like warnings. Claire stepped out of a rental Jeep looking like she'd dressed from a catalog. Patagonia jacket, brand new pack, camera hanging around her neck, worth more than my house. Pretty woman, sharp green eyes, hair the color of hickory bark pulled back under a knit cap. She smiled when she shook my hand, but it was the kind of smile people give when they're trying to prove they're not nervous. I loaded her gear into my old Ford, and we headed up into the Monongahela. The road got narrower, rougher, until pavement gave way to gravel, and then just 2 ruts climbing switchbacks. Took us 4 hours to reach the lodge. Place was called the Whitmore Hunting Club, back when it was built 1920s money. Timber baron named Whitmore, who shot bears from the porch and drank cognac while his dogs tore them apart. 17 bedrooms, wraparound porches, a dining hall, big enough for 30 men and their lies. Sat empty since the early 2000s when the last caretaker quit. The current owner lived in Florida and rented it out cheap to folks who didn't ask questions. We pulled up just before dusk. The lodge loomed against the ridge, like it had grown there, dark logs gone silver with age. Windows boarded over with plywood gone soft from rain. Wind moved through the chimneys and made a sound like breathing. I carried Claire's bags while she took pictures of everything: the rusted bell by the front door, the way the porch sagged in the middle, the nitrogen monoxide trespassing signs half shot away by bored teenagers. Inside smelled like cold stone and old smoke. Dust floated in what little light came through the cracks. I got the generator running, coughed and sputtered, but finally caught, and a couple kerosene lanterns going for ambience. The owner had called me the week before, voice raspy from too many cigarettes and too much sun. "Listen," he'd said, "there's 17 rooms upstairs. Don't matter how you count them. Always 17 doors. Door 17, at the end of the east wing, don't sleep near it. Don't open it. Hell, don't even look at it too long. Just leave it be." I'd laughed, asked if he was serious. He hung up without answering. Claire picked room 16 because the window faced east and caught the sunrise over the ridge. "Perfect light," she said. I took room 3, closer to the stairs, and the bathroom that still had water. We ate chili from cans heated on the wood stove, drank coffee thick enough to float a horseshoe. She asked questions, good ones, about growing up in these hills, about the mines closing, about why folks stay when there's nothing left. I answered honest. She listened like she meant it. First 2 days were good work. I carried her tripod while she hiked ahead, lying belly down in the mud to shoot mushrooms pushing up through dead leaves, or an old stone wall swallowed by laurel. We found a family cemetery. I was 16 the first time I ever drew blood that wasn't my own, and it wasn't the clean kind you brag about over camp coffee. Bow season, 1999, up near Snowshoe, where the air cuts like a fresh-honed blade and the laurel grows so thick you can't see the sky some days. My Uncle Ray had a buddy who owned a hunting lodge nobody'd stayed in since the 70s, and Ray figured me and my cousin Luke needed to learn what it meant to sit still in the woods until your legs went numb and your thoughts turned honest. Luke was 18, already talking about enlisting come spring. I just wanted to kill something bigger than a squirrel and prove I wasn't the runt anymore. We rolled in on a Friday dusk, tires crunching over frost-heaved gravel. The lodge squatted. At the end of a washed-out logging traced 3 stories of blackened chestnut, stone chimneys cracked like old teeth, windows staring blind. Uncle Ray handed us the key on a rusted nail. 17 rooms, he said, spitting tobacco juice into the weeds. Count them if you don't believe me. Door 17 at the top of the back stairs. Don't mess with it. Man hanged himself in there in '63. Family nailed it shut with railroad spikes and left him swinging. Place has been quiet since, but quiet ain't the same as empty. He laughed like it was a joke, but his eyes didn't. Luke rolled his. I pretended I didn't hear the part about the spikes. Inside smelled of mouse nests and coal oil. Dust lay so thick on the floorboards, you left prints like fresh snow. We picked rooms on the second floor because the stairs creaked less than the third. Luke took the one with the busted window so he could smoke without going outside. I took the corner room where the heat still worked if you kicked the radiator hard enough. We spent the evening cleaning rifles by lantern light, eating Vienna sausages from the can, talking big about the bucks we'd seen on the drive-in. Luke had a flask of peach brandy he'd stolen from his daddy. We passed it back and forth until the room tilted gentle and the house sound settling beams. Wind in the eaves felt almost friendly. First day, we hunted hard. Up before light, boots soaked through before we'd gone a mile. The woods were thick with sign rubs on every sapling, scrapes still steaming in the cold. I drew on a 6-point just after noon, arrow flying true, but it was quartering away, and I rushed the shot. Watched it bolt with the fletching sticking out behind the ribs, blood bright against the leaves. We tracked it 2 hours, Luke cursing me under his breath, until the trail played out in a laurel hell, so dense the dog couldn't have followed. "It'll lay up and die slow," Luke said. "You got shot at, genius." I told him to shut up. We never found the deer. That night we built a fire in the main hall, flames throwing shadows tall as giants across the paneled walls. Luke passed out on the settee with his boots still on. I sat staring into the coals until my eyes burned, thinking about that deer somewhere out there bleeding, wondering if it was still trying to run. Eventually, I climbed the stairs, legs heavy, and fell into bed without bothering to undress. I woke sometime past midnight, needing to piss so bad my teeth ached. The house was black dark. No moon, no power would let the generator die to save fuel. I fumbled for the flashlight on the knitstand, clicked it on, and shuffled into the hall. The cold hit me like stepping into a creek in March. My breath plumed white. I was halfway to the bathroom when I saw it. A thin blade of yellow light, sliding out from under the door at the far end of the corridor. Door 17. Steady, warm, pulsing faint like a heartbeat. I stopped dead. The light stretched maybe 6 feet across the floorboards, stopping just short of my socked feet. I remember thinking how strange it was that the glow didn't flicker lanterns. Flicker, bulbs flicker, but this was constant, like someone inside had all the time in the world. I should have turned around. Instead, I stood there watching, afraid to move, afraid to breathe too loud. Then the light moved, swept slow across the floor, left to right, like a man walking with a lantern held low, searching. It paused exactly where my shadow fell, as if whatever carried it could see me through the wood. My bladder forgot its urgency. The hallway felt longer than it had that afternoon, the air thicker, like trying to breathe soup. I took 1 step back. The floorboard under me gave its small, honest creak. The light stopped moving. The voice came, through the door soft as a confession in an empty church. Male, middle-aged maybe, the kind of voice your shop teacher had, calm, patient, impossible to lie to. "Joshua Lee," it said. Not Josh. Joshua Lee. The name my mama only used when I'd done something that shamed her. I hadn't heard it since I was 12 and stole $20 from her purse to buy fireworks. I couldn't move. The voice kept talking, low and steady, listing things I'd buried so deep I'd have convinced myself they never happened. The cat I'd shot with my daddy's .22 when I was 9 told everyone a hawk got it. The time I let Luke take the blame for breaking the neighbor's window because he was bigger and could handle the whipping. The girl in 8th grade I spread lies about after she laughed at me in the cafeteria. Every secret laid out plain, no anger, no judgment, just fact, like reading from a ledger. Then it got to the deer. Gut shot at 11:43, it said. Left it to bleed out slow in the laurel. Still trying to stand when the crows found it. I felt my stomach fold in on itself. The light under the door brightened, just enough to show the heads of the railroad spikes glinting where they pinned the door to the frame. 6 of them, driven in crossways, thick as my thumb. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for the cold to crawl inside my clothes and set up house. Long enough for the voice to finish its inventory and fall silent. Then the light went out. Not snuffed gone, like someone closed a book. The hallway dropped back into black, so complete I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I ran. Not proud of it, but I ran back to my room, slammed the door, shoved the dresser against it, even though the thing that spoke wasn't coming through my wall. I sat on the bed with the bow across my lap. Arrow knocked until the window went gray with morning. Luke found me there when he woke, eyes bloodshot, asking what the hell I was doing. I couldn't speak. Just pointed down the hall. We went together, boots loud in the stillness. The spikes were still in the door, driven deep, but every one of them was bent outward at the tip's slow, deliberate curves, like something inside had hooked its fingers under the heads and pulled steady until the iron gave. The wood around each spike was splintered clean, fibers standing up white and fresh. No tool marks, no pry bar, just pressure, patient and strong. Luke reached out to touch one of the bent spikes. I grabbed his wrist. Don't. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. We packed in 10 minutes. Bows, clothes, the half-empty brandy flask didn't matter. Left the coffee pot on the stove and the fire still smoldering. Drove down the mountain with the windows cracked because the cab smelled like fierce sweat and neither of us could stand it. I never went back to that lodge. Uncle Ray sold his share. In the place the next spring, said the roof was caving anyway. Luke shipped out to Bragg in February. Came home different. Wouldn't talk about the woods anymore. Me, I quit bow hunting. Took up fishing instead. Open water, no thickets, no shadows that remember your name. Some nights when the house is quiet and the kids are asleep, I'll hear it. 3 soft taps on the bedroom wall, same rhythm as a pulse slowing down. I don't get up. I lie there staring at the ceiling, counting sins I thought were buried, wondering if the door up there is still nailed shut or if the spikes finally gave, wondering if the light is still walking, patient, waiting for the next boy who thinks he can outrun what he's done. Because some debts don't die with you. They just wait behind the right door, lantern low, ledger open, ready to call you by the name your mama gave you when you were still worth saving. I was 23 when exploring forgotten places felt like the only thing that made life interesting. Me and Sarah ran a small YouTube channel called Abandoned Appalachia. 3,000 subscribers, mostly teens who liked watching us whisper through dark places. We heard about the old Cressmont Lodge, abandoned for 20 years, deep in the woods, the kind of place where even the air feels paused. We grabbed 2 cameras, headlamps, and some snacks, and headed out on a cold October night. The building appeared suddenly out of the trees, 3 stories tall, dark, silent. The front door hung slightly open, like someone had walked through it just minutes before. Inside, the air felt colder than outside. Wallpaper hung in long strips, the floor covered with a thin layer of dust that looked untouched for years. We explored floor by floor. The upstairs rooms still had rusty bed frames, cracked mirrors, old furniture, nothing unusual. Yet, the basement was last. And we knew if anything made a good video, it would be down there. The stairs narrowed as we descended. The air grew heavier, carrying a strange, sweet, old smell that didn't belong to any normal basement. There were 16 doors down there, until we reached the one tucked behind a stack of boards. Door 17 smaller than the others. Every door was dusty and faded, but the knob on this one was clean, polished, like someone touched it every day. We set a camera on the ground and knocked, joking around. Nothing answered. We must have drifted off at some point. Exhaustion, cold, who knows? Sarah shook my shoulder. Listen. At first I heard nothing. Then a faint scraping sound, slow, soft, like fingertips gently testing the floor from the other side of the door. We stared at the gap beneath door 17. The thin line of darkness suddenly grew deeper, as if something moved right up against it. And then something slid out. A hand. It looked human at first glance, but too pale, too thin, and the fingers moved with a strange, slow flexibility, like they were studying the air. Sarah's breath cracked. I pulled her back. The hand retreated silently. We tried to laugh it off, saying it was some kind of illusion, a trick of the light. But then the scraping returned. This time more deliberate. The fingers emerged again and began writing in the dust. Each letter slow, careful. HLPME perfect letters. Too controlled to be accidental. Too calm to be human panic. A faint fresh dampness made the letters shine slightly. Not water, not typical basement moisture. And the smell. Strangely metallic, old, unnatural. We ran without grabbing anything. Upstairs, we shut the basement door and waited for morning, listening to every tiny sound in the empty lodge. When the light finally came, we forced ourselves back down. Door 17 was exactly the same. Locked. Still, the message remained, "Help me," and beside it, a handprint. Larger than before, more defined. As if the thing behind that door was changing, growing. We left everything there and drove away. Sarah broke up with me 2 weeks later, saying every night she felt that same hand reaching toward her in her sleep. Sometimes I still drive by the forest road. There are new warning signs now. No trespassing anywhere, but I know that door is still down there, perfectly polished, waiting. And on the nights when the world feels too quiet, I still wake up to that same soft scraping under my bedroom floor. Slow, patient, searching. I never planned on telling this one out loud. Some stories sit in your chest like a stone you swallowed young, and every year it gets heavier, but you learn to breathe around it. Mine started in May 2006, when I was 28 and still believed the Forest Service badge on my shoulder meant I could fix anything with a chainsaw and a can of orange paint. I'd been on the Gauley Ranger District crew for 6 seasons, blazing trail, clearing blowdowns, packing salt blocks for the elk they were trying to bring back. Good honest work that left you too tired for dreams. Then a late nor'easter blew in off the plateau, dumped 3 inches of rain in 6 hours, and turned every creek into a brown snake. My radio squawked that the bridge on FS 212 was gone, so I was stuck on the wrong side of the river with nothing but my pack, my axe, and a half-eaten Snickers. I knew the country, knew there was an old hunting lodge 2 ridges over, built in the Ave 20s by some Charleston doctor who thought killing bears made him a man. Called it the 17-door place, because no matter how many rooms the blueprints showed, you always counted 17 doors inside. I'd passed it a dozen times on patrol windows dark, porch collapsed, tin roof rattling like loose teeth. Figured it would keep the rain off one night. Worst case, I'd sleep in the cellar with the mice. I reached it just after dusk. The storm was still hammering, wind screaming through the eaves like it had a grudge. The front door was off its hinges, leaning inward. I stepped over it, into air thick with mildew and old smoke. My headlamp picked out details in slices. A stone, hearth big enough to roast a hog, animal tracks in the dust, wallpaper hanging in strips like shed snakeskin. I walked the ground floor counting doors out of habit: kitchen, pantry, 2 parlors, A library with the books swollen shut. 9. Second floor added 7. More bedrooms mostly. Iron bed frames rusted to the floorboards. One with a child's shoe, still tied neat on the windowsill. 16. The attic stairs were behind a narrow door under the main staircase, padlocked with a chain thick as my wrist and a master lock gone orange with rust. I tugged once. Solid. Good enough. I'd sleep in the kitchen near the stove, ride the storm out, hike back at first light. I built a small fire with chair legs and pages from a 1974 Field and Stream boiled creek water. For coffee, ate the rest of the Snickers. The lodge creaked and groaned around me, but I'd spent enough nights in lean-tos to know the difference between house noise and trouble. Unrolled my bag on the kitchen table mice, can't climb enamel, and was asleep before the fire burned down to coals. I woke to the humming. Not the wind, not the rain drumming the tin. A woman's voice, soft, coming from directly above me, clear as if she sat on the beams overhead. I knew the tune before the words Pretty Sorrow, the old ballad my mother used to sing while she kneaded biscuit dough, her hands white with flour, voice low and sweet enough to make the kitchen feel safe. She'd been dead 19 years that spring, taken by a stroke when I was 9. I hadn't heard anyone sing it since her funeral. I sat up slow, heart already running. The fire was out, the room black except for the red eye of the stove. The humming kept on, same verse looping, down in some lonesome valley. Hanging my head low, I told myself it was a squatter, some woman holed up in the attic, riding out the same storm. But the attic door was chained. I'd checked. I grabbed my headlamp, clicked it on low, and moved quiet through the house. The humming followed, drifting down the main stairs then, the back hall, always directly above wherever I stood. I climbed to the second floor. The sound settled over the attic door like dust. Chains still in place, lock still closed, but the humming was right there on the other side. Close enough, I could feel the vibration in the yawny wood. I pressed my ear to the door. The humming stopped. Silence so complete, I heard the blood in my temples. Then the voice started again, same melody, but now with words I'd never heard. Oh, Sarah Ellen, don't you cry? The river's wide, the night is deep. I rocked you once, I'll rock you still, in the dark where the cold winds sleep. Sarah Ellen was my mother's name. Nobody alive knew it, but me and the headstone in the ash. Little cemetery behind New Hope Baptist. I backed down the stairs so fast, I missed the last step and landed hard, ankle twisting. The humming didn't follow, just waited, patient, up there in the dark. I spent the rest of the night in the kitchen with my axe across my lap, headlamp on full, staring at the ceiling. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps overhead. Around 4, the rain eased to a drizzle, and the lodge settled into that pre-dawn hush where you can hear mice breathing. I must have dozed, because I came awake to the scrape of the chain hitting the floor. I was up the stairs before I felt my feet move. The padlock lay open on the landing. Hasp snapped clean like it had been cut with bolt cutters, though I'd have heard that. Chain coiled. Beside it, links warm to the touch. The attic door stood ajar 2 inches, a slice of black, breathing cold. I nudged it with the axe handle. Hinges screamed. My light swept the room. It was bigger than it should have been, long and narrow, running the length of the house, floorboard silver with age. One dormer window at the far end, glass intact, rain streaking, down in slow tears. In the middle of the room sat a single rocking chair, oak, hand-carved, facing the window. The seat was worn smooth, and caught in the slats tangled like it had been ripped out in a hurry was a thick hank of gray hair, waist length, still damp at the ends. Not wet from rain. Wet like it had been washed recent and left to dry. The smell hit me, then lavender water and creek mud, the same scent my mother wore to church. I stood in the doorway a long time. The hair didn't move. The chair didn't rock. But I felt, watched the way you do when you're alone in the woods and realized the birds have stopped singing. I backed out, pulled the door shut, and dragged the heaviest dresser I could find up 2 flights of stairs to wedge under the knob. Didn't sleep again. Dawn came thin and gray. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. I hiked out before the coffee water boiled, ankles swollen but holding. Reported the bridge, finished. My shift never mentioned the lodge. Quit the service the next March when the nightmares started. Always the same, me climbing those stairs, the chair rocking slow, my mother's voice calling from inside it, asking why I never came to see her anymore. I drive past the turnoff sometimes, late when the road's empty. The lodge is still there, roof finally caved in last year, windows blind with kudzu. But on quiet nights, when the wind moves just right through the hollow, I swear I hear it humming, faint, drifting down from the sea, ridge like a lullaby nobody asked for. And I lock my doors, pull the curtains, and try not to think about the chain on the floor or the hair still waiting for someone to brush it smooth. Because some songs aren't meant to follow you home, and some mothers never let go, even when the river's taken everything else. I've hunted bear since I could shoulder a rifle, but after October 2023, I left the high ridges too, the ghosts and the younger men. My brother Caleb still ribs me about it, says I got spooked by a squirrel with a grudge, but he wasn't the one who looked into that glass and saw a smile that didn't belong to him. Caleb's 3 years older, built like a logging truck, voice like gravel in a bucket. We'd planned the trip for months. Late season bear, black powder only, no guides, no cell service, just the 2 of us and the mountains the way God left them. We found the lodge on an old topo map, hand-drawn in '52, marked Whitaker Hunt Club 17, RMS. Locals in Richwood just nodded when we asked, same way they nod at any question they don't want to answer. We reached the place on a Thursday dusk, tires hissing over wet shale. The lodge sat in a hollow where the sun gave up early 3 stories of chestnut, gone black with creosote. Stone chimneys cracked like old bones. Porch rails leaning outward as if the house was trying to shrug the roof off its back. Windows were blind with plywood, but the front door stood open a hand width, swaying gentle on leather hinges. Inside smelled of leaf mold and gun oil, the kind of scent that clings to your clothes and follows you home. We carried our gear in by headlamp, boots echoing on heart pine floors that hadn't felt weight in 30 years. Caleb counted doors out of habit kitchen, pantry, 2 parlors, library, servants' stair 9. On the ground floor, second floor gave us 7 more, most with iron beds rusted to the frames that made 16. The 17th was always the 17th, and we both pretended we weren't looking for it. We chose rooms on the first floor, back to back, doors open so we could hear each other breathe. Mine had a window facing the creek. Caleb's faced the ridge. We ate venison stew from a thermos, passed a flask of Evan Williams, talked about the bears we'd seen on the drive in, big boars tearing up laurel, tracks the size of pie plates. Caleb fell asleep first, snoring loud enough to scare off anything with sense. I lay awake listening to the house settle, beams popping like knuckles, wind fingering the eaves. Sleep came slow, the way it does when you know you're not alone, but can't name what's sharing the dark. I woke to footsteps overhead, not the random creak of old wood. Heavy, deliberate, a man's weight in boot heels walking. The length of the upstairs hall slow, pause, slow like he was counting doors. I sat up, heart already running. Caleb's snore hitched once, then settled. The steps stopped directly above, US, right where the map said the corridor ended. Silence stretched so long I could hear the creak outside. Then one more step, soft, almost tender, and the house went still. I waited for Caleb to wake, to grunt, and tell me it was a raccoon in the attic. He didn't. I pulled on my boots, grabbed the maglite, and eased into the hall. The staircase rose in front of me like a spine. Each tread complained under my weight, but the sound felt swallowed, as if the house was listening. Second floor was colder, air thick with the smell of wet stone and something sweet underneath talcum, maybe, or old lilac water. My light swept the corridor, wallpaper bubbled and peeling, a single runner rug moth-eaten to threads. Doors stood, closed, all but one. Door 17 was cracked open 3 inches. I'd never seen it open. Not in stories, not in the grainy photos Caleb found online. It was always painted shut, nailed, chained pick your poison. Now the gap breathed cold, steady, like lungs behind the wood. I told myself wind, told myself imagination, but my feet kept moving. The knob was brass, cold enough to sting. I pushed. The room was long and narrow, windowless, lit by nothing but my flashlight. Floorboards, silver with age, ceiling beams low enough to brush my hair. Against the far wall stood a full-length mirror in a walnut frame, glass-spotted but intact. I'd never seen it on any inventory, never heard it mentioned. It leaned slight, as if tired. My reflection stared, back same wool shirt, same 2-day beard, same maglite trembling in my hand. Only this reflection was smiling, not my smile. Wider, knowing, the kind you give when you've been waiting a long time. I froze, the smile widened. My reflection raised its left hand slow, deliberate and crooked, a finger. Come here. I backed up fast, shoulder hitting the doorframe. The reflection didn't move with me. It stayed, centered in the glass, hand still beckoning, smile still fixed. I slammed the door, heart hammering so hard I tasted iron. The knob wouldn't turn locked from the inside or stuck. I couldn't tell. I dragged a hall table across the corridor and wedged it under the knob, then stood there shaking until the cold soaked through my shirt. Caleb found me at dawn sitting on the stairs, rifle across my knees. He took one look and didn't laugh. We went up together, boots loud in the morning quiet. The table was where I left. Door 17 was closed, but the knob turned easy now. Inside, the room was empty. No mirror. No dust where a mirror should have left prints. Just bare walls and the faint smell of lilac fading like a memory you can't quite hold. On the inside of the door, at my exact height, was a handprint. Palm wide, fingers long, pressed into the wood as if the grain had softened to take it. The print was fresh edges, sharp whorls clear and warm. I pulled my hand away fast, skin tingling like I'd touched a battery. We left before coffee, packed the trucks in silence, didn't speak until we hit pavement. Caleb asked if I wanted to report it. I told him report what a ghost that smiles. We burned the map that night in his backyard, watched the lodge go up in orange curls. He still hunts those ridges, says he's never seen door 17 open again. I drive truck now, long hauls across the flat states where the sky stays open and mirrors are, just glass. But some nights, parked at a rest stop with the cab light off, I'll catch my reflection in the windshield and swear the smile comes a half-second late. I keep the curtains drawn at home, avoid antique stores, never look too long in any mirror after dark. Because I know what's waiting on the other side of the glass, patient, wearing my face, and one of these nights the door won't be there to close.